Imagine for a second that it is a Friday night.
Oh, the absolute peak time for delivery.
Exactly. You are the proud owner of a brand new local food delivery startup,
Yeah.
and the kitchen is just absolutely firing on all cylinders. Tickets are flying out of the printer, your drivers are perfectly coordinated, and you are doing incredible volume.
The dream scenario.
It is. You hit, say, $10,000 in sales for the week.
Wow.
You're thrilled, right, until you look at the actual payout from the dominant third-party tech platform that facilitated those orders.
Yeah. The reality check.
Because suddenly $3,000 of your hard-earned revenue was just gone.
Poof.
Poof, vanish into commission fees. You are doing all the physical labor, but the tech giant is taking home the margin.
It is a devastating reality for the industry. I mean, when you are bleeding 20 to 30% on every single transaction, the survival math of your business becomes incredibly fragile.
Right.
You are essentially just working for the algorithm at that point.
But what if you could rewrite that math? What if, in your very first year operation, you managed to save a staggering $100,000 in commissions?
Wait, 100 grand.
100 grand in a single year. This isn't some hypothetical business school scenario either. It is exactly what a real-world delivery startup called Borku actually pulled off.
That is massive.
Right. They saved over 100 grand, and they did it by completely sidestepping the tech giants and taking control of their own digital infrastructure.
Which, is the difference between simply scraping by and having the capital to aggressively expand your footprint.
Exactly. And that brings us to the mission for today's deep dive. We are looking at the underlying architecture of the modern delivery economy.
It's a fascinating space right now.
It really is. Specifically, we have a stack of sources exploring the ecosystem of Enatega versus traditional white label food delivery platforms.
Right.
We want to decode how modern businesses are skipping that grueling, 6 to 12 month, six-figure custom software development process.
Which used to be mandatory.
Totally. But now they are just jumping straight into the market with their own platform.
And this matters profoundly to you, the listener, because whether you are an aspiring founder sketching out a business plan right now, or just someone fascinated by the sheer mechanics of the tech landscape, understanding this specific dilemma, what the industry calls the build versus buy versus brand decision, it's the ultimate shortcut to understanding how digital marketplaces actually function today.
It really is.
It dictates who makes the money, who controls the customer data, and how quickly a localized idea can become a reality.
Okay, let's unpack this terminology before we get too deep into the weeds here.
Good idea.
What actually is a white label platform? Because, you hear that phrase thrown around a lot in startup circles.
Oh, constantly.
At its core, a white label food delivery platform is pre-built, fully baked software.
Right.
Imagine an entire functioning digital ecosystem just sitting in a virtual box.
I love that analogy.
Thanks. So inside that box, you get a sleek, polished app for the customer to order their pizza. You get a dedicated web panel for the restaurant to accept and manage the order.
Yep.
You get a separate GPS-enabled app for the delivery rider to navigate the streets.
Crucial.
And finally, you get a master admin dashboard for you, the owner, to oversee the whole operation. It is software that is ready for a business to just slap its own logo, its own brand colors, and its own web domain onto.
It is a brilliant concept, honestly.
Yeah.
Because it allows a local entrepreneur to instantly project the technical sophistication of a multi-billion-dollar giant like DoorDash or Uber Eats.
Right.
You do not have to hire a massive team of engineers to write the code from absolute scratch.
Which would take forever.
Exactly. You bypass the bugs, the delays, and the astronomical initial development costs.
Yeah.
You're essentially licensing an existing battle-tested infrastructure.
But here's where we have to draw a massive line in the sand, though.
Okay.
While all these white label platforms might look exactly the same on the surface once you put your shiny new logo on them, the business philosophies running underneath them are radically different. It really comes down to who actually holds the keys to the kingdom.
That is the core issue.
To me, using a traditional white label software as a service, or SaaS, is basically like renting a fully furnished apartment.
Okay, yeah.
It is beautiful, it is move-in ready, and if the sink breaks, you just call the landlord to fix it.
Super convenient.
It is entirely frictionless. But at the end of the day, you do not own the building. You can't knock down a wall if you suddenly decide you want an open concept kitchen. The landlord simply won't allow it.
That is a perfect analogy. And, to extend it, the Enatega model feels much more like buying the architectural blueprints and the raw materials to build your own house on your own land.
Exactly.
What's fascinating here is how Enatega's open source model practically applies that blueprint philosophy.
Right.
They offer full front-end source code ownership for a single one-time payment.
Let's pause and define that for a second just to make sure we are all on the same page. When we say front end, what are we actually talking about compared to the back end?
Great distinction. So the front end is everything the user actually sees and touches.
The interface.
Exactly. It is the buttons, the menus, the layout, the color schemes, the map interface.
Got it.
The back end is the invisible engine routing the data. It's the traffic cop making sure the payment goes through and the restaurant actually gets the ping.
Okay, that makes sense.
By giving you the front-end source code, Enatega gives you the ability to fundamentally alter how the user experiences your app.
Which is huge.
Right. Once you make that one-time purchase, Enatega steps completely out of the picture.
Yeah.
They have zero control over your deployment, zero access to your customers, and most importantly, they take absolutely no percentage of your ongoing revenue. You own it.
Okay, I have to push back here. Let's ground this in reality for a minute.
Okay, hit me.
Because if I am listening to this, I'm thinking keeping 100% of your revenue, avoiding monthly subscription fees forever, and having total control.
Sounds perfect, right?
It sounds like an absolute no-brainer. But let's say I'm a restaurant owner. I know how to perfectly sear a steak, but I do not know how to code in Python or React.
Right.
If I buy this source code, aren't I just trading a manageable monthly software fee for a massive six-figure developer salary? Why on earth is that a better deal for someone starting from scratch?
That is the exact friction point, and it's why traditional SaaS platforms dominate the early-stage market.
I mean, it has to be.
Owning your source code is incredibly powerful, but it requires taking on the burden of technical reality. If you own the code, you have to host it. You have to configure the Amazon Web Services service. When it is Super Bowl Sunday and your traffic spikes by 1,000%,
Oh, man.
you are the one who has to make sure the servers don't crash. When Apple releases a new iOS update that suddenly breaks your map integration, you have to have a developer fix it.
That sounds incredibly stressful.
For a non-technical founder testing an unproven, highly localized idea, managing your own source code isn't just daunting. It can be disastrous.
I see. So it's really about minimizing the immediate barriers to entry versus maximizing your long-term independence.
Precisely. In year one, when you might only be doing a few dozen orders a week, a fully managed SaaS platform with very predictable low monthly costs might actually be the much safer bet.
Yeah.
You trade long-term control for short-term ease. The SaaS provider makes sure the servers stay up. They handle the iOS updates. They essentially act as your outsourced IT department.
So if the trade-off is ultimate control versus absolute convenience, how much are businesses actually paying for that convenience today?
Good question.
Let's look at the actual market reality. Instead of just listing off features, let's play this out by looking at two hypothetical paths a founder might take based on the sources we have. Let's call them the SaaS path and the ownership path.
I like it. Let's start with the SaaS path.
Okay.
If a founder prioritizes speed and support, they're looking at platforms like Yellow, which is built by a company called JungleWorks, or a platform like Dionde.
Right.
These operate on a recurring monthly subscription model.
And what does that actually look like financially?
Well, with Yellow, you are looking at around $490 a month just to get in the door.
$500 right out of the gate.
Yep. And if your marketplace grows and you need advanced features, that scales up rapidly. It easily exceeds $2,000 a month.
Wow.
Dionde has a slightly different approach. They offer a free starter tier just for single restaurants. But if you want to build a multi-restaurant marketplace, you are paying anywhere from $99 to roughly $400 a month.
Okay.
And obviously scaling higher for enterprise needs.
So the upside there is obvious, super fast, no code setup. You don't need to know what a server is.
Exactly.
But the downside is you are completely dependent on the vendor's hosted infrastructure. You do not own the code. If they raise their prices next year, you either pay it or your entire business goes dark.
Exactly. And then there is a middle ground in the SaaS world, platforms like Ordering.c. This is geared toward developers or larger agencies building complex operations. They operate on custom subscriptions that might start around $5,000 a year and climb to $2,000 plus a month.
That's a pretty penny.
It is. It involves a much heavier implementation process, heavily reliant on the vendor's enterprise support team. But again, you are still essentially renting the infrastructure.
Which brings us to the ownership path.
Right.
If a founder wants to buy the blueprints, they are looking at platforms like Yum or Enatega. These operate on a one-time license model.
Yep.
Yo-Yum, for example, ranges from roughly $1,000 to $3,500 upfront, and similar to Enatega, they offer full source code ownership.
And this specific divergence, the monthly subscription versus the lump sum upfront, it introduces a critical concept that anyone evaluating software must understand.
What's that?
It is called TCO, or total cost of ownership.
If you are listening right now and doing the mental math, you might be thinking, well, paying $490 a month for Yellow sounds way less risky for my cash flow than dropping $3,500 on day one for an open source license.
Of course.
But there is a massive trap there, isn't there?
A huge trap. The initial sticker price is an illusion. You simply cannot compare month one of a SaaS platform to the upfront cost of a source code license.
Right, because of the recurring fees.
Exactly. You have to calculate your break-even point over a 2 to 3 year horizon. Total cost of ownership means factoring in the compounding nature of those subscriptions.
Yeah.
$490 a month is nearly $6,000 in year one alone. By year 3, you have paid almost $18,000 for a platform you still do not own.
Wow. When you lay the math out like that, it's startling. 18 grand just to rent?
And it goes beyond just the subscription fee. What happens when you inevitably want a feature the platform doesn't have?
Oh, like a custom payment option. Yes, exactly. Let's say you want to integrate a specific hyperlocal payment gateway that is popular in your specific country. With a SaaS platform, you have to submit a feature request.
And wait.
And wait! The vendor might say no, or they might charge you a massive custom development fee to build it. And then here's the kicker. They still own that feature.
That is wild.
But with an open source license, your own developer just goes in and writes the integration. TCO encompasses licensing, subscriptions, customization fees, routine maintenance, and server hosting.
Here is where it gets really interesting to me.
Yeah.
When you look closely at these pricing models across the board, whether it is Enatega, Yellow, Dionde, or Yo, practically all of them charge 0% commission on the orders themselves.
Right.
None of them are taking a slice of every pizza or burger you sell like the big consumer-facing apps do.
Which tells us exactly what the real game is. The battleground among these software providers isn't about per-order margins.
The modern tech war is not about stealing a slice of your food sales. It is entirely a battle over digital real estate. It is vendor lock-in versus technical independence.
The SaaS providers want to make it so frictionless and easy for you to set up shop on their land that you never want to leave.
Exactly.
They want you hooked on the convenience of their hosting and support. While the open source providers are selling you the independence of owning your own land, knowing that once you have the blueprints, your destiny, for better or worse, is entirely in your own hands.
Which naturally pivots our conversation from how businesses merely start on these platforms to how they actually scale.
Yes, because growing changes everything.
Because the choices you make on day one dictate what is physically possible in year 3. We aren't just talking about a simple app that delivers local tacos anymore.
Right.
We are talking about scaling up to massive, multi-tiered digital marketplaces.
Let's bring back our apartment analogy for a second. If you are renting that furnished apartment and your family grows, you might need a bigger living room. The landlord says no to knocking down the wall.
You're stuck.
In the digital world, scaling a SaaS platform is like trying to turn your rented apartment into a fully functioning shopping mall.
Right.
The underlying architecture simply wasn't designed to allow you to do that. But if you own the source code, you essentially hold the zoning rights. You can bulldoze the living room and build a grocery aisle.
And the underlying logic of delivery software makes this incredibly viable.
How so?
If you strip away the branding, the core mechanism of these platforms is simply customer requests item, vendor prepares item, driver delivers item.
Yeah, the basic loop.
That digital supply chain is completely agnostic to what the actual item is. It doesn't care if it is a hot pizza, a bottle of aspirin, or a bouquet of flowers.
Yes. And our sources highlight an incredibly specific real-world example of this mechanism in action.
The super app.
Exactly. And Enatega's architecture was utilized to build a massive multi-service super app over in Qatar.
Incredible project.
We aren't just talking about a digital menu of restaurants here. This single platform was customized to seamlessly combine food delivery, grocery shopping, pharmacy orders, and an array of other local services all into one centralized application.
It's massive.
It became a one-stop shop for the customer to manage essentially their entire local commercial life.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is exactly why standard off-the-shelf templates fail at a certain scale.
Because they're too rigid.
Right. A SaaS vendor's standardized interface simply cannot support the complex interconnected vision of a super app. You need the ability to fundamentally alter the user experience at a granular level.
Yeah.
You need to weave in complex third-party integrations, distinct vendor categories, and totally diverse delivery rules. You cannot do that if you are waiting on a vendor to approve your feature requests. You need to own the blueprints.
So if we step back and look at the landscape here, the sheer flexibility of ownership dictates exactly who should be choosing which platform.
Absolutely. When you survey the landscape, the dividing lines become very clear. If you are a multi-vendor marketplace founder, someone actively trying to build the next dominant regional player, like a localized DoorDash or FoodPanda, you're going to naturally gravitate toward open source options.
Makes total sense.
The same goes for large regional franchise operators trying to centralize dozens of disparate locations under one custom loyalty program, or tech-driven agencies building bespoke solutions for large clients.
Right.
They require the architectural freedom that only comes with source code ownership.
Conversely, let's think about that single independent restaurant owner we talked about earlier.
The guy cooking the steaks.
Exactly. The one who just wants to escape the crushing 30% fees of the big apps so they can actually afford to keep their doors open.
Yeah.
They have zero desire to build a regional super app. They don't want to manage AWS servers or hire a freelance developer.
Too much hassle.
For them, a simpler vendor-assisted SaaS setup, even if it ends up costing $18,000 over 3 years, might be the perfect frictionless lifeline.
Right.
It lets them launch over the weekend, save on per-order commissions immediately, and get back to doing what they do best, making food.
It is entirely dependent on your business timeline, your budget, and your ultimate ambitions.
So what does this all mean? As we synthesize this entire deep dive into the architecture of digital delivery, the most vital takeaway is that there is absolutely no universal one-size-fits-all solution.
Yep.
You have to know what game you are playing. If your goal is a quick, painless launch with zero technical headaches and you value a fully managed ecosystem, the recurring SaaS platforms are your path of least resistance.
Oh, sure.
But if your mission is long-term asset ownership, zero vendor lock-in, and the limitless customization required to build something as ambitious as Borku or that massive Qatar super app, then the open-source one-time payment models are undeniably the way forward.
Which is why we want to turn it directly over to you.
Yep.
Based on everything we've unpacked today, your own technical comfort zone, your appetite for upfront risk versus compounding long-term costs, and your ultimate vision for a business, what stands out to you as the smartest play?
It's a tough call.
Are you looking for the convenience of a utility bill or the independence of a digital asset?
It really reframes how you look at every app on your phone, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, every time you order food, you are interacting with someone's decision to either rent or own that digital space.
It absolutely does. And, it leaves us with one final fascinating reality to consider.
What's that?
We now live in a world where incredibly powerful, off-the-shelf, white-label technology allows practically anyone to instantly replicate the digital infrastructure of titans like Uber Eats or DoorDash for a fraction of the historical cost.
Yeah.
What happens to the global delivery industry when every local independent business realizes they hold the keys to their own technology?
Oh, wow.
If a single startup can save $100,000 in year one just by taking ownership of their code, the balance of power in our local economies might be shifting much faster than anyone realizes.